This episode is brought to you by Explore St. Louis. Explore St. Louis is your source for all things to do, to eat, to see, to experience in the city under the arch. From Michelin star restaurants to affordable boutique hotels and much more, ExploreSTL.com is your co-pilot when visiting the 314. Greg Vitello, legend, simple as that, and an even better human. This is quite simply one of our favorite conversations. From his Northside of Chicago baseball roots to rural Kansas soccer for the first time and a lifetime in the Lou spent leading countless young Spartans, he's just an ace. From state titles to a College World Series dream come true, this chat is simply a blast. Let's go.
Soccer Dad Pod time. Arr. That's a pirate. That's really not Irish, is it?
I mean, I'm sure there were Irish pirates.
Yes.
I don't know any.
Where are you going with this music? I can't figure it out. Usually I can put my finger on it.
You'll figure it out
Is
in a
this Vlogging
second.
Molly?
No, this is the Pogues.
Oh, right, the Pogues.
Yeah. Yeah, it's...
Right, you Jared knew. I did.
Yeah, I would say in Ireland, Pogues are more important than YouTube.
Okay.
Wow.
Probably true.
Okay.
Have you ever been? You ever been to the Emerald
no.
Isle?
No.
Jared, you?
I haven't, but it's on my bucket list. It's on my to-do list.
To-do list. That's
We
big.
had an itinerary last year to go in June, and then realized that a couple of our traveling companions, meaning my son and my wife, didn't have updated passports. So
That sounds awesome.
we pivoted and went to Costa Rica 6 months later.
So, kind of knowing you and knowing how calm and serene and collected you are at all times, I'm sure that didn't bother you at all.
Oh, no. That was great.
Did you follow it up with a bunch of Irish whiskey? 2 gallons worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy anxiety.
I've been to the Emerald Isle twice, and I'll tell you right now, both of you would love it.
Well, you know what my favorite beer is.
Yes.
So-
Black with a white frothy head on it.
Love it.
Yeah, it's good. You do that too, and then your culinary choices are pretty simple. It's fish or chips or both.
Potatoes.
Yeah, which would be the chips. And you better like cod. So you should go. But anyway, I'm playing the Pogues on purpose here, and we'll talk about it in the infamously famous Your Name Here Points of the Day in just a little bit. I do need to give a quick thank yous, plural, out. First off, Steve Petcher and SLSG, yet again opening the front doors and allowing us to come in and record at this fine establishment, a.k.a. Soccer Park.
You know, he's got a 300 attendee youth leadership camp going on.
Yeah.
This place is humming. I'm excited. It's fun to be here when it's full like this.
You know what sucks, though, is lightning.
Yeah, but it's going to move out.
I know, but it's just everybody's stuck in the grill right now and a lot of pent-up energy. I'm excited to see him just like out on the field. I want to be able to record and watch soccer.
Yeah, it's kind of like a scene from The Natural. You remember the movie The Natural?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Lightning's going to strike probably the statue out there. Lightning's going to strike it, and the kids are going to go running out. It's going to be great.
Or the way we're talking about soccer and where we're at for our city and our long time. This has been our long time mecca. Pertinent to today's episode, heaven.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I see where you're going with that.
I gotta get my James Earl Jones voice going on.
Real quick, Explore St. Louis. We've been talking about it all the time. They continue to support us. We continue to thank them. A lot of stuff going on. Tons of music fests, tons of sporting events, new restaurants popping all the time. Go to ExploreSTL.com. You want to travel. If you're local, you need a staycation. Speaking of Hotel St. Louis, did you guys see all that all over socials today? It was on Twitter. It was on Insta, everything.
I didn't catch it.
They had a new
because-
blast. They're doing the highlight of all the new renovation. It's so awesome. And I pulled it up, looked at it. It's cheap.
Really?
You're sub $150 a night for a really cool room downtown indoor
With really
parking.
good amenities.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one thing St. Louis is like completely undervalued for, and that would be the art and architecture in a lot of those buildings because they've been empty for so long.
Yeah.
But you get in there and you get some of the boardrooms that you never knew existed. They're pretty amazing.
Are they going to turn the railway into a hotel?
I don't know. I know there's plans for it. I don't know what the plans are, though. Anyway, explore STL.com. Go find one of those fine gems. Staycation, vacation. Come check it out. Crescent Plumbing Supply, new location, 6614 Olive. Your bathroom and half bath, powder room, laundry room, it's all outdated. You know it. Just admit it. Call them up. Go check it out. Get your new stuff, including a
bidet.
There you go. They've got those too.
Just, instead of the wire brush, use water. I mean, you just get a good spray down.
what kind of toilet paper do you use? Hey, I want to get right into, as I mentioned earlier, one of our favorite parts of the show, and that is the Your Name Here points of the day. Left to right, Zach. What you got?
I just want to shout out to the U.S. men's Olympic team.
Quarterfinals.
First time in 24 years making it through the group stage into the knockout round. Now, their group wasn't
semantics.
say a powerhouse of international soccer, given that we had New Zealand, Guinea, not even New Guinea, just Guinea.
So that means it's the
France.
old Guinea? They better than the new Guineas?
I wish I would have looked that up before I jumped on and said stupid shit about it. But yeah, it's not Papua New Guinea.
It's not Papua.
Just
but what I will say, though, I mean, credit when credit's due, the resolve to play the host nation in front of a packed stadium in Marseille and get boat raced, really. They did bounce back, and they got the results they needed, and they're in.
And Pat Schulte, 2 clean sheets after that.
Yeah.
So he lets in 3 goals in the first game, which is, I would think, a little tough to accept. But then to come out and do 2 clean sheets in a row to get us in the knockout, I think it's awesome. So that's
all it's really going to do is if, let's say, they pull off the next W and move into these semis. Can you imagine the heat that is going to be flying on the first team debate from a coaching perspective, expectations?
Before or after we announce a coach?
Yeah, well, you know what? If I'm U.S. Soccer at this point, as much as you guys know, like I've been clamoring, name someone, anyone right now, get this done, move forward.
Yep.
Okay, if your Olympic team is on prime time and gets through the quarters into the semis,
name a coach.
Bite your tongue for a little bit. Because you have a little bit of deflection, get it right.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Use that as a little buffer to get some more time.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that idea.
So, U.S. Soccer, I know you're listening. Take our heed.
Yeah. Congratulations.
A few more donations to get it.
What you got, Jared?
Here is pertinent today's episode. Your Name Here, point 2 of the day. Excuse me. Which will go hand in hand with our episode today. We have a longtime Jesuit coach and educator, very successful. 68. I'm going away from soccer. 68 years ago today. Do you know what happened? And your guys' reactions will be, we'll see what they are. 68 years ago today,
1956.
President Eisenhower signed into a bill that our national motto will be "In God We Trust." And part of said bill is that it was to be put on all American paper currency. So 68 years ago today, President Eisenhower signed "In God We Trust" bill, our motto. What do you think?
I think he probably got votes for that.
I think it's good. I think it's good to illustrate that it only happened 68 years ago.
I mean,
and
look,
not the founding of our currency.
Look, why wouldn't
Fresh off the opening ceremony of the junk we talked about in last episode.
Look, the blending, the merging of church and capitalism, I'm all for it. So
you know who died not long after that was Joseph McCarthy.
Yeah,
Really?
true. Yeah, that is true.
And he was the guy that caused us to put "In God We Trust" because of the communism side.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna go.
Touche.
I'm gonna go totally off the rails too for my Your Name Here point of the day, and it's gonna allude back to our opening. As you guys recall, you heard the music.
I did,
Little
yeah, the
Pogues. We
Pogues.
were alluding to the fine Emerald Isle. News today broke. Yet another fine institution is up for sale. And that being Pat Conley Tavern.
Conley's, yeah.
So
Dogtown.
let's frame this. Over the past few days, Scottish Arms, which isn't Irish, but it's
in that region.
After a few pints, they all sound the same, right? Scottish Arms, after so many years, closes its doors permanently. O'Connell's, after Jack Parker, the fine proprietor, passed away, COVID comes through, changes were made. It's not really working out, right? O'Connell's is up for sale.
Are you buying it?
No, not on the air. I'm not buying it.
It's a 60 degree from your old spot.
Yes. Yeah, well, for me, probably a driver 7-iron.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So you have Scottish Arms close its doors. You've got O'Connell's up for sale, and now Pat Connolly Tavern up for sale. Your name here point of the day is kids suck. They're on social media too much, and they're not going to the pub because the average amount of time, a millennial in particular, spends on their device is in excess of 6.5 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right? If they would be cutting that in half and giving those fine establishments 2 hours of their day, they'd actually be talking to humans and supporting local businesses. So I'm blaming social media for the demise of 3 of St. Louis's finest pubs and taverns.
I will allow you to
That's my
blame
point.
social media for that. However,
I'm going to cut your mic. What do you have to say?
I'm just curious if you think that that's why those specific establishments are selling, or if it's because of the
Trend of people drinking.
the demographics of the owners.
Way less of the second part of your suggestion, way more the first.
Well,
Across the board, I don't care what the institution is. Amsterdam Tavern, they'll tell you, right? They're still packed, but
nobody drinks beer.
not like 15, 20, 25
No, what
years
I'm getting at is if you own Pat Connolly's or O'Connell's and you're at retirement age or near it.
Well, that's not what happened.
Okay.
Yeah. No, there was Pat Connolly's had new ownership is, I think, less than 2 years ago.
And they failed.
Oh, okay.
And they completely failed.
Traditional bar and grills, pubs in particular, that rely heavily upon that old school happy hour crowd into the evening where it's...
Well, and O'Connell's lunch crowd is very important. My question is what's going to happen to all the history inside of O'Connell's? The lights from the old O'Connell's.
Yeah.
I want that stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like if I were to really
Somebody's gonna
start
buy
a
it.
cause, like I would pull together a few people and say, okay, hey, let's find.
I have
let's
family
get this
members that
place.
live in Chicagoland that have lived in St. Louis that are begging somebody that they know to buy O'Connell's just to keep that moving forward.
Is there a better Guinness than a cheeseburger on a Thursday when it's raining at noon?
No, the thing about O'Connell's too is like I don't consider myself a burger connoisseur, but I kind of like burgers a lot. I'm not even that thick grilled, flame grilled, burger fan. I like smash burgers on a flat top.
Yeah, but O'Connell's.
Oh my god, dude, the
O'Connell's
burger,
thick one is good.
Yeah. You know what I love about the place too? No carry out. It's all plastic plates. It's the menu has like 4 items on it.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's always been.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's about to go by the wayside. Yeah, I know. Let's pour one out. Pour one out for the old pubs. Going to roll us out here with some more pogues. I want to say a quick thank you to Brenda Suter. Suter & Co. Real estate company. Go check them out. If you're looking for a change of scenery, she'll help you out. And when we come back, we're going to be talking all things Spartan from the top of the pile, soccer, baseball, and beyond. Thank you for listening. Like, review, follow, share. Those are all free, and it gives us incredible amounts of self-confidence that we don't deserve. Thank you for listening. Catch you on the flip side.
Dirty old town. Dirty old town.
Hey, Brenda.
Hi, JB.
So, you sell houses.
I do.
Do you also help buyers?
All the time.
Have you ever worked with a soccer mom who's ran out of space and bathrooms?
Well, I am a soccer mom and all the time.
What about helping a seller get a crowd of people in to battle for their home?
We're pretty good at that as well.
St. Charles County?
All of it.
St. Louis County?
SoCo to Norco.
What about the city?
Would you prefer a golf cart neighborhood or a high-rise close to City Park?
Trick question now. Can you get me close to my kids' training site?
Whether at Soccer Park or Slica, I can help.
Well, where can I get in touch?
Suterandco.com. SOUTERNco.com.
Awesome. Well, that was easy. Let's go.
Listen up, guys. While you lay claim to the garage, the basement, and that generous little corner of the walk-in closet, let's be abundantly clear. The bathroom belongs to the ladies. The fact that there's a line in the morning means you need to think about a new one for you and the kids. So why don't you set up an adult field trip and go check out Crescent Plumbing Supply Showroom. CrescentSupply.com. Everybody wins.
We're back. It's time. Guest time.
I always love a good harmonica. You know?
Not a bad intro.
No,
Not too bad.
it's a good one.
I kind of was feeling it. I wasn't sure what I was going to play, but I was looking outside, and we're so close to the Merrimack.
Yeah.
Rain's coming. I always get a little weirded out when I'm out here and I see even the littlest bit of rain. Just like, here comes the river.
Well, yeah. I mean, we were here, a week and a half ago, and sitting in the boardroom, 80 yards from here, talking about how there was water above the outlet lines in this building that we're sitting in right now.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy because we're
8 years ago.
20 rows above field level.
Yeah.
That's a lot of water. That's a lot of water. So we're coming back in Led Zeppelin when the levee breaks. But I don't think it's going to break today.
No.
I do need to throw a quick thanks to Kranzberg Arts Foundation also for their continued support of the show. Music at the Intersection's right around the corner. Go to musicattheintersection.org. They've got super cheap kid rates to that fest, and there's going to be a ton of stuff going on over at the Big Top Grand Center. Go check it out.
I just have to say, I am just so excited
For
this episode because of our guest.
do the intro,
This
baby.
is the first time, I think, that we've recorded where two people in the room were wearing University of Tennessee garb.
I would concur,
And I am so excited about that.
Captain. Roll them in.
Well, we have the illustrious, the multiple Hall of Fames, which we'll get into, Coach Greg Vitello.
Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. It's a total honor to be here.
No, it's our honor for sure.
Yeah.
You came strolling up, and when everybody was asking who's coming in, who you guys got, and we told them who we got, and they're like, "Whoa, cool!" It's one of those things. Like you carry a resume that people just look up to, and we're super honored to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That resume was built on the fact that I was able to coach some really neat kids over almost 48 years, second to none. We had, really great players, Will Bruin and Pat Noonan and the McCunes and guys like that. But there were so many other guys that were just flat out role players, guys that were willing to take a little bit of direction and follow along and not have to be the star, but simply be a guy that could help out. And that's, I think, was most of the success that was involved in the programs that I was involved with.
Well, let's talk first.
Yeah.
I think the players, and we have many friends that are ex-players of you.
You have friends?
Of yours. Yeah, believe it or not, I do.
He's gonna fit right in.
Baseball, soccer. I think not the main, but one of the big reasons for your success is, people that are leaders in our game today have the nicest things to say about you. These guys are saying that you're basically a person that has the most integrity and you just deeply care about others, which is probably an easy way to explain your success. For instance, Bobby O, who played for you in the 90s, Bobby O'Connell, who's now coaching our SLU High Junior Bills, basically gave you the highest compliment that another man can give somebody else. He basically told me that Coach Vitello, next to his dad, was the second most influential man in his life. What does that mean to you?
Wow, it means an awful, awful lot. You don't coach in high school. Actually, you don't teach in high school. You don't teach at all for the money. You do it because you're there to help. And that's what I was trying to do. We often kid about molding the future leaders of America. Well, maybe and maybe not in some cases, but you get a guy like Bobby O'Connell who just, first of all, he's a first-class individual, comes from a great family, but he's willing to buy into what you're selling. And we used to use that term so many times, buy into what we're selling, and everything's going to be good for everybody. Just kind of get in line. And for the most part, again, I was very fortunate to have guys that would say, okay, show me some direction.
Wow.
Let me rewind the clock a little bit. Excuse me. Because so many people that have been involved with this game, specifically at the high school level, from your generation, they all were from the backyard. They were from St. Louis, but more importantly, they were from the north side or they're from the south side. Stake your claim. Where did your early days find you, and walk us through to landing at DeSmet a little bit?
My journey was a little different than most guys, and I've heard all the stories about the North and the South, and I remember Terry Mickler, for one, telling me that they practiced at Forest Park and they watched St. Louis U practice, and at the end of practice, they ended practice with the North guys playing the South guys. I'm from Chicago.
Oh, north side, south side, same
North
question.
side. I grew up 4 miles from Wrigley Field.
Oh, there you go.
I spent a lot of time in Wrigley Field. I was there before it was fashionable to be in Wrigley Field. We used to take.
Has it ever been?
Oh man. Hey, when there was like 8,000 people there, maybe 8,000, we used to take the bus to the L, run down the stairs, run in the ballpark. Wow. We used to get the usher to turn his back and talk to one of us, and 4 guys would sneak in, behind him.
So are we talking Montrose, Irving Park? Wait, you're up on the north side?
No, Addison, yeah.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
we took the bus
there you go.
To Addison, and it was great. And we used to love to go when the Giants were in town because they had Willie Mays and Orlando Cepeda and Willie McCovey and guys like that. And if you would get a batting practice ball that went out of the ballpark, the usher would let you in the bleachers. And at the time, the bleachers were only $1 or $1.50.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we could run wherever we wanted in the bleachers, and in the 7th inning, you could go wherever you want in the ballpark. And, of course, everybody would run behind the Cubs dugout. But, again, this was before it was fashionable to be in Wrigley Field.
Yeah, because they were all at home listening to KMOX and the Cards game.
Exactly.
So you grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
You love baseball.
Sure.
What brings you to the 314? Where's the transition?
Never played soccer before. I went to St. Benedict's College, which is now called Benedictine College.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I first became acquainted to numerous St. Louis guys who seemed to flock to that school for some reason.
You sure did.
I was supposed to go to Xavier University and play baseball. And they called in early June and said, well, that the few dollars that we had, this is well before NIL, the few dollars that we have, we don't have. And so my parents and I, we sat down and we said, there's no way we can afford to go to Xavier. I was going to go to DePaul University. Mm-hmm. And simply, I didn't even have a car at the time. Take the bus in the L to DePaul and see what happened. No one else in my family had gone to college before. Well, a classmate of mine from high school, we were together one night, and he said, I'm going to St. Benedict's College. And I went, sure, what's a St. Benedict's College? And he gave me a brochure. And I took it home, and my mom and dad and I, we went through the whole thing, and we saw the dollar amount. And at the time, I was very fortunate. I was working on the truck docks, loading and unloading trucks. And so I was making more than the $1 an hour most of the guys that I hung with were making. And they said, if we put things together, you might be able to do this. And I said, let's roll.
Nice.
So I applied, and fortunately, I got myself in. And as a matter of fact, it was like a 12 or 13-hour ride from Chicago to Kansas City and then to a place called Armour, Missouri. And that's where they picked us up and brought us into Atchison, Kansas. And when they picked us up, there were a number of guys there, and they had a van and a pickup truck. Well, they put all the luggage in the pickup truck, and everybody else got in the van except me and 2 other guys. There was no room in the van. So we had to ride in the back of the pickup truck with all the cow dung all over the back of the truck. And I thought to myself, I'm going to spend the weekend here, and I'm going back because this just is not going to work for me. And after being there for one weekend, I thought, this is the greatest place on earth. But going back to, soccer, many of the guys that I was living with were from St. Louis, and they were playing soccer. And my freshman year, I watched soccer. My only touch with soccer was watching the ethnic groups play in the parks in Chicago.
Yep.
That's the only time I ever saw soccer. And these guys, the more and more they talked about it, I thought, this is really interesting. So I went out and watched my fellow classmates play soccer my freshman year. And that's freshman year, I played baseball. And as a matter of fact, in the first game of the season, we're playing Rockhurst, and I ran into our center fielder, and I banged up my knee, and I missed the entire season. So we got back my sophomore year, and I'm all set. We're going to play baseball. And my roommate at the time said, who was from St. Louis, he said, we need a backup goalkeeper. And he said, you can catch a little bit. Do you think that, do you be interested? And I went, maybe. So I did. Okay. We had a coach that his first soccer game that he saw was the first game he coached. He had a neat little book, and that's where he drew everything from. And I was the backup goalkeeper. And there was no technique. It was just make sure the ball doesn't go in the goal.
You had Ted Lasso as your college
Pretty
soccer
much.
coach.
I did. Yeah.
Man, if you could have scripted that.
Yeah.
Oh my
I know.
gosh.
It was
And
great.
from Kansas.
Yeah.
Yes, and from Kansas.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Did he have a mustache?
No, he did not. As a matter of fact, mustaches weren't in at the time, and haircuts were a big thing.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, you had to have your hair
And you
cut.
had to shave.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
There are no beards and stuff like that.
No.
Well, it turned out midway through the season, the first team goalkeeper gets hurt, and they kind of look at me like, okay,
You're up.
this is all we got. And it kind of worked out. The entire roster was St. Louis except me, and there was another kid from Venezuela. That was the entire team. It was all St. Louis. And I just followed along, tried to keep the ball out of the goal. We had no special drills. We had no goalkeeper coach. We just played. And I had the time of my life. And my senior year, guy said, if you really want to coach soccer, because I wanted to coach, I wanted to teach, said, you got to go to St. Louis. And I always wanted to go back to Chicago. And they said, St. Louis is the place to be. And I thought, well, let's try it. I came into St. Louis. We got snowed out of a weekend triple hitter, actually. Weather was awful there. I mean, I think we had something like 45 games scheduled, and we played maybe 30 because of the weather. My coach said, I asked to kind of go into St. Louis for these interviews, went to the Hazelwood School District, and they said, we got some science openings, but we have zero coaching. And I was kind of disappointed. I was staying with a close friend who actually graduated from St. Benedict's, and his sister happened to be the principal over visitation. And he called her, and she said, there's a new school right down the street. I know nothing about the school. Here's a number. I called. And they said, well, we're kind of interested. We're having some changes here. A relatively new school. It's only been in operation 1 year. And I said, terrific. He'll send me an application. Well, I waited and I got no application. And finally, who was a Jesuit priest, said, I'm coming into Kansas City to visit some friends at Rockhurst. Would you mind if I drive up and see you, over the weekend? I said, terrific. However, I'm taking the GREs in the morning, and I got a double hitter in the afternoon. He said, can we meet in the student union? I said, terrific. We talked for 10 minutes, and he pulled out a contract. And he said, for $4,300, we'd like to have you. And I jumped on it. I said, terrific, let's do it.
To be clear, that's DeSmet that you're talking
that's DeSmet I'm talking about.
That's
Sorry, I didn't mean to go on and on and on.
No,
but,
No, that's awesome.
These are the stories that I think we all love to hear, and it's such a cool experience for us just to listen.
Yeah,
but that's
year,
great.
What year was that?
That was 68.
68.
My first year at DeSmet, yeah.
I just, and talking to all the people that we've had on this show, and then seeing City come in here, and we'll get to that and get your opinion on all that stuff. But like what DeSmet is today, and starting there at the ground floor, I mean, what does DeSmet even mean to you? I mean, how special is that? I mean, you were there in the infant stages of DeSmet, and the juggernaut that it is now, and the people that have came out of that place from academics and athletics, and you had a big hand in both. How special is that?
Crazy good. we had no athletic director, and we only had freshmen and sophomores, and so I was responsible not only for coaching. Actually, I coached football too, because at the time soccer was being played in the winter. So I was a freshman football coach, and we were playing soccer in the winter, and I couldn't get a schedule. Nobody would play us. First of all, nobody knew who the heck we were, but nobody would play us. So we ended up playing various varsity teams, and we got a B team schedule. I tried to get in the CYC tournament, which is played every year at Christmas time. They wouldn't let us in, so we had to bide our time. But again, we had guys that were willing to be patient and see what's going on. And we felt like we had a really good nucleus. And again, we had kids that, in many cases, many of these kids were turned down by St. Louis U High that came to DeSmet.
Yep.
And but they all said, hey, we want to prove ourselves. And the neat thing is my first couple of years there, we kept hearing that, well, down at St. Louis U High, they do this, and down at St. Louis U High, they do that. And they're all kind of looking around like, we're not St. Louis U High, and we have an opportunity to create, our own thing. This is what we want. As a matter of fact, the kids, they started out with green uniforms, and it was Michigan State green. And all of a sudden, one day, one of the kids said, that's too common. We need a different color. So they went with maroon, which was, from a coaching standpoint, a total nightmare, because at the time, nobody had a true color of maroon. Right. And I remember trying to order uniforms, and the socks were a different color, and the pants were a different color, the jersey was a different color. Everything was so different, but they wanted maroon. They wanted their own thing. So in essence, they're creating their own history, and the hell with St. Louis U High.
Let's go.
So my question is, you just, you're less than 4 or 5 years into engaging the sport, figuring it out, trying to figure out what your coaching style is going to be, how are you going to train, what's your system, all this stuff, right? But you come into St. Louis, and from your Benedictine experience, that, all these St. Louis guys that play the game. Right. And you come here, SLU plays the game, CBC plays the game, all those North County schools did. Everybody played.
Right.
At what point were you like, okay, they take this really seriously?
Right away.
Yeah.
And my thing was, at the time, there weren't any videos to go to. There's no internet to go to. I can't find drills on the internet. I'm searching every possible book I can possibly find. I can't tell you how many times I went to watch St. Louis U play. I went to watch the amateurs play at Heeman Park just to see,
right.
The type of system they were playing, what these guys were doing back and forth, how they were. I tried to get as many training sessions as I could. And I did, I just put together the best I could. And what really saved me was a gentleman by the name of Detmar Kramer, who comes into St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
And he's at SIU, and they've got a soccer training school. And this is the first of its kind in the United States. And I couldn't sign up fast enough. And this was the total eye-opener for me. I found out, one, what the sport was all about, the history of the game. We went from 8 o'clock in the morning till almost 8 o'clock for 6 days in a row. Actually, 7 days in a row. And Detmar Kramer was a taskmaster. It was, hey, this is how it has to be done. We got on the field, and we had to do skill sessions. I had zero skill. And so it does most of the people that were out there. And we're falling all over each other. But it was constantly, come on, stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. And we stayed with it. And I can't tell you what it did for me soccer-wise. And I managed to get myself a C license there. I got a B license there, ended up in Dallas to get my A license.
Wow. And just kind of moving the timeline along a little bit. We are a soccer pod. Let's jump into the 90s. In soccer, in St. Louis, high school sports, the 90s decade at DeSmet that you turned out with, along with your players and staff and administration, it was one of those decades that is hard to rival. 4 state titles in the 90s. Basically every other year. It's special for me because that's the time that I grew up playing the sport in this city, and the names that you had on those teams, and before even the 90s, that decade especially, and I know your boy who we'll talk about, Tony, he was involved in these groups. What did that decade mean for you as a competitive? We kind of talked about the humble beginnings and where you got to in the 90s. We're fast forwarding a lot, but pretty special time there at DeSmet Jesuit.
Yeah, very much so. Matter of fact, a guy that did our T-shirts, he put out a T-shirt that said "The Decade of Dominance," which I thought was pretty special. But again, we go back to guys, like Chris Klein, who played on those teams, and Matt McCune, Harry Weiss. These guys, again, I think what was happening is that guys were seeing what's going on in West County, and they were liking it, and they bought in, and there was no recruiting at the time, although some people accused us of recruiting. I think in my 48 years, I never, ever recruited a kid. As a matter of fact, out here at the soccer park one time, I was watching a game, and a lady came up to me, and she said, "Hey, we haven't heard anything from DeSmet, rather." And I said, well, what do you mean you haven't heard anything? Well, such and such a school has said they'd given this, and such a school said they'd given this. And I went, you can't do that. She says, oh, no, you can. And I went, well, we're not in the position to do that.
That reminds me of your Baker comment that you can, repeat.
The politics side.
I have a lot of my Granite City peer that listen to this, and they're gonna love these stories. But I want to go to that 1991, the first year, Matt McCune and that team. Here, true story. Because I was playing varsity at that time for Coach Baker, and I remember the Tournament Champions was coming up, and Baker was one of those old school, really X's and O's basketball style of a coach. Everything's on the whiteboard, right? And you felt like it was Bobby Knight, not a soccer coach.
Great.
And I remember I believe we were bracketed with you guys, and it was kind of a pre-tournament warm-up, preparation, and all he did was he wrote down Matt McEwen's name on the board and just circled it and said, "Stop him." And that year, just watching your team, and and we had just won state. We were competing at a high level, and I remember you guys just had it clicking. Because those were the years where it was really the big four. You had SLU, CBC, and Vianney. And it was like whoever won out of those four teams, you could pretty much expect that they'd be lifting the state title. Yeah. That first year, though, what did it mean to you after growing up on the north side of Chicago, being a baseball guy, landing in Kansas City, a bunch of St. Louis soccer guys poach you to the 3-1-4, and in a short period of time, 10, 15 years, you start to coach really a power program, but then you win it all.
Dynasty.
Yeah. What did that first state title mean to you?
Wow. You talk about Matt McCune, a guy that could just totally take over a game all by himself.
Yeah, we knew.
Just one tidbit about Gene. One of the greatest comment ever came out of Gene's mouth. We were on the sideline watching the end of the game, and he's looking at one of these referees, and he goes, so and so, you got assholes for eyeballs. I had to get that in.
Well,
that sounds like Gene.
That sounds like
that was Gene.
That was North.
I'd love to compete against him, man. It was fantastic. But that first state championship, my wife told me that I shook for days. Besides, it was very cold that day, but I was beside myself. I just couldn't believe it. My son just went through a national championship, and someone asked him about it, and he says, "I'm not over it yet."
Yeah.
His dad's not over it yet. Yeah. But that's how it was. That was the feeling I had. And, it was something that somebody can't take away from you. You own it. It's part of you now for the rest of your life. And there's no way to tell someone what a great feeling it is. It's just there for you.
Yeah.
And we're going to have Zach in the second half definitely talk about this national championship that your boy just claimed and learn all about that, because that's really exciting. Fast forwarding to that last championship in the decade in 1997, this is a story that you kind of just find from just relationships. And I want to get your comment on it. And was this when you thought maybe Tony had a future in this? 1997, you guys win the state title. your son had just graduated from high school, playing for you on both sports. I think he was at Spring Hill at the time.
Yes, he was.
It sounds like from the players that I knew that I played with on the team, he somehow comes back to the game, the state final game, makes his way into the locker room before the game. Previously in the year, you're playing CBC. CBC had beat you twice, had your number, and whatever speech that Tony gave those kids, along with your speech, and how that group came out of that locker room, it sounds like they busted the walls down, because you guys went on to win 2-0 in that 1990 state final against Mickler, probably a longtime friend.
Yes.
Just kind of bookend that side of it. We talked about the 91. What did that mean as a family, as a group?
Wow. Well, first of all, the night before, we're playing Rockhurst, and I'm walking along the sidelines, and boom, I walk into my son. And now that's a 9.5 hour drive, from Spring Hill, and boom, there he is. And he said, "Yeah, we just got here." I thought, well, okay, terrific, man. That day, that Saturday, CBC, boy, they were good. Really, really good. Besides having the best high school soccer coach in America. To this day, he still is.
That's high praise.
But, tall task. We have our pre-game meeting. I say what I think need to be said. And really, what do you say to your team when you've gotten this far? You're playing probably the best team in America. And, man, if you're not ready for this, you're never ready.
Yeah.
And my son's standing behind me, and he said, "You're excused." And I went, "What do you mean I'm excused?" He said, "Leave the room." So
was there a hot mic? Did somebody pick that up?
Yeah. I left the room. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even stay near the room. I walked further away. And, for the next 8 to 10 minutes, I'm waiting for my team. And finally they come out, and like you said, there's foam coming out of their mouths. They are ready to play this game. And to this day, I don't know what he said. As a matter of fact, the players from that team have not divulged what he said. Wow. He won't tell me what he said. And you know what? It's okay. That game was one of the best soccer games I've ever been involved with. It was just a great game.
I just had to ask a question about the fact that JB alluded to the fact that you came off a baseball intent at St. Benedictine, went in as a backup goalie, started playing as a goalie, and then within 20 years you're winning a state title in the
soccer mecca
of the country,
yes,
as we self-proclaim.
No,
I know.
Everybody else admits it.
We agree. But you didn't do it in just soccer. You also did it in baseball, and you also coached basketball or football and a couple other sports. Track.
Yeah.
So my question to you is more about, how do you become a leader of men than become an expert in the sport? And what blend did you kind of take on? Because obviously you were desperate to find resources and video and coaching to get better at the sport itself, but that doesn't get you where you ended up. What was that formula like for you?
Good question.
Well, first of all, I had, going back to my college coach, again, he was not a soccer coach. He was a basketball coach. But to take the job of being a basketball coach at St. Benedict's, they told him he had to coach soccer. And just following the way he did things, everything was structured. This is how you got to do it. There are certain things that you must maintain, and there's certain things you have to stay away from. He told me when I graduated, and he knew what I was going to do, he said, no matter what, always be true to yourself, decide what you want to do, and stay with it. He said, I've seen so many guys that get in a situation where they can overreact rather than just react. And he said, take things as they come. But he said, again, be true to yourself, stay true to yourself. And that's what I'd always tried to do. I tried to always tell guys, quit pointing the finger at other people. Point the finger at yourself. Take responsibility for what you do. And especially my last few years of coaching, that seemed to be really difficult for kids to do, is to take responsibility for their own actions, because there were so many outside influences that tell guys it's always somebody else's fault. It's not your fault. And again, I think that's one of the reasons my son has had the success that he has, is he's kind of followed the same philosophy. Now, we're totally different coaches, believe me, but he's kind of followed the same philosophy. Be true to yourself and take responsibility for your actions.
Sounds like your son has a little bit of Herb Brooks in him.
Yeah, he does.
Closes that door, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask you a final question before we go to a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about a lot more. I was kind of reading through some of the notes on you today, and the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, they had, your bio in there. And one of the things that really stood out to me was Vitello, and I'm reading verbatim, Vitello saw 350 of his players earn opportunities at the collegiate level, with 115 earning Division I opportunities.
Yes.
That's a lot of talent. And my question to you is, and every people that listen to the show, they know I love this. This is my favorite question. You're a mentor. You're a coach. You've watched athletes at every level in multiple sports come through the pipe, there at DeSmet. What sets those players, the McEwens of the world, the Pat Noonans of the world, what sets them apart? When somebody asks you, hey, what's it? That's the question. How would you define it when you look at a player or the person? How would you describe them if somebody were to ask you, define it in your world?
Well, first of all, have guys that don't feel like they've already arrived. Have guys that are hungry. And I think that's one thing that I was fortunate enough to have, guys that were hungry. They wanted to be coached. And a lot of times now, the word coaching is misconstrued when you, quote unquote, yell at a guy. You're breaking him down. You're doing that. No, it's coaching. I'm coaching this kid. I'm trying to get the best out of him. I see that he's got a certain amount of ability. God gave him this ability, and it's my job to get it out of him, to work him and work him and work him. I've never asked a kid who had a tremendous amount of ability to back off. I want you to give me everything you got. But I've also never asked a kid that, in my opinion, didn't have that quality to give it to me. He didn't have it. Just give me what you got. And again, hold yourself responsible.
So I want to go back to the three names then, McEwen, Pat, and Will. What did
Chris
they
Klein.
have? Yeah, what did they have? Because they clearly took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
What would you say that they had that in your own words, give me what you got.
Yeah.
What did they give you?
Again, these are three elite players that, and I heard this about the Olympic basketball team from Stephen Curry. We all checked our egos at the door, and those three guys checked their egos at the door. They were willing to say, hey, look around. Not everybody's a great player like me, but how am I going to be able to blend with these guys? How can I make these guys better players? I know a lot of times Matt was probably a little off when other teams looked at him. Guys saying, man, I hate that guy, but that's a guy you want on your team.
He's a bulldog.
But his teammates wanted him. He made the people around him better. And there was a lot of guys with abilities, great abilities, that can't do that. Matt could do that. Pat could do that. Will could do that.
Parting question, Desert Island. You can only take one.
Oh boy.
Wow.
You're coaching a 1v1 tournament. Who's your one guy?
Who's the one?
And I got a little birdie told me something real quick before you answer, and maybe this might not make you answer, Pat. Pat told me a funny story because you weren't easy on him and you just explained it. Pat banged his knee up early on in his career, and I think you told him to tape some Advil on it and get back out there and go to work.
I did. Tape an aspirin to it and get going.
So who's your ride or die?
I'd have to say overall, Matt McCune was probably the best player that I ever coached. Complete and total player. Other guys had their things. I mean, you needed a goal. Will Brew could score a goal. You just needed general, play, create a little bit and do a little bit of this. That was Pat Noonan.
Brilliance.
Pat Noonan, I think of a goal he scored against St. Louis U High in a state semifinal, I believe. He was on the left side of the goal, and he bent the ball in the top right-hand corner. It was phenomenal, but that's what Pat could do. But Matt could just control the entire game.
Wow.
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
I have a question in the hopper that I cannot wait to ask, and it's going to be really difficult, I think, for you to answer, but we're going to save it for after the break.
We're gonna take a break to the when the levee breaks. When we come back, more coach. We're gonna talk national championships and much more. Thanks for listening. Like, review, follow, share. I told you it's all free. We're gonna bring you the good stuff after the break. See ya. Music at the Intersection will be a 2-day jam-packed music festival with an abundance of food, beverage, and merch vendors throughout. 2-day passes start at just $175, 1-day passes at $95, $40 for kids 12 to 17, and those under 12, free. Go to musicattheintersection.org to get your tickets and be part of the party in historic Grand Center. All right.
Get your air guitar out.
Right? See what I'm doing here? Playing a little Chicago for my friend from Chicago here.
That's great.
Fun fact.
You have a fun fact?
Yeah. I mean, you guys make fun of me for all the things that I did in my past, but one of them was,
Is this a new one?
I don't know if you know this or not, but we started an a cappella group. Yeah, I know, it's funny. In high school.
Oh,
We actually opened for Chicago in the Washington Town and Country Fair.
wow.
Really?
1997.
Did you sing this song?
We didn't sing any Chicago songs, no.
Hey, I got a claim to fame here.
Do you?
Trombone player. I went to grade school and high school with him.
That's a Chicago Northside story there.
James Pankow.
So
Love that.
true story. I used to live at Lincoln and Addison.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was post college.
Uh-huh.
A girlfriend of mine that went to the school that we went to, she called me after I graduated, and she's like, JB, I'm pretty sure you don't want a real job. Would you like to be a bartender? And I'm like, hell yes. So she got me a job at Kitty O'Shea's
Oh, okay.
down on Michigan.
Yeah.
First 2 months was at 98th and Damon. Deep South.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. And I moved in Lincoln and Addison, right across from the Brown Line station.
Yeah.
So talking about Wrigley Field, because back in those days, this is late 90s, Chicago wasn't what it is today.
No.
And it was still kind of affordable.
Mm-hmm. No.
And as a bartender, I didn't go to work till 5. So every day we would go take the bus straight down Addison, and at 1:20, go sit in the bleachers.
That's right. It's fantastic.
Do you miss Chicago?
Oh, I sure do. I mean, I'd go back there to New York second, but my wife, nope. She said I can handle it for about 2 days, and that's about it.
That's the same with me.
Yeah.
You can keep Chicago.
Yeah, well, that's when I moved, because I was living out there quite a while, and then finally I realized, why am I living here just to have a barbecue and never actually go to the city?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's traffic.
Yeah.
Traffic is really what blow it. It's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, I know you're going to take point coming down to this Tennessee road, but we've talked a lot about soccer, and you also spent a lot of your time with baseball. Where's your true passion at? Do you like baseball better? Do you like soccer better, or do you like it equally because it's different seasons and it's just different and it fills each void? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the answer to that is yes.
I love it.
No, I like soccer from the standpoint that it's all done in your pregame preparation. It's how do you prepare? And as Bobby Knight says, there's no such thing as luck when you prepare. Mm-hmm. And that was one of my philosophies, was make sure you're ready. And, you get 10 minutes at halftime, and by the time everybody's done with getting a drink, and you talk about one thing offensively and one thing defensively, the referee's blowing his whistle, and you got second half. Players have to make adjustments on the fly. But I like preparing guys before games. I used to love to prepare before we get played Terry.
Okay.
Because no matter what I did, I could never prepare enough.
That's an interesting point, and
yeah.
I don't think we've ever really talked about this, but the fact that soccer is one of the only sports where once the first whistle blows, there isn't really an opportunity for the coach to do a whole lot of coaching. Whereas in baseball, the next half inning, you can sit down with your entire team while one guy's batting and have an entire conversation.
Wait a minute.
You can adjust per pitch.
In baseball, he had his team run into the foul pole in between innings, which is interesting. Tony's doing the same thing at Tennessee.
Yeah, he is. It was get guys off the bench and get them going. And that, matter of fact, that's one of the things that I always concerned myself with the guys that weren't playing, because I felt these guys were making a terrific sacrifice. They're doing everything that those guys on the field are doing, but they're never getting the chance to play. And I was always, are you guys in the game? I used to tell guys, hey, if you're a second baseman and you're the backup second baseman, when he comes to bat, what are you doing? What's going on in your mind? Are you actually making like, this is my at-bat? Did I prepare before I got in that batter's box? What was I doing in the on-deck circle? That's what I wanted our reserves to do. And I know my son brought up the same thing when they were watching a team, basically a circus in another dugout, and he's going, well, yeah, I think that's really neat, but my guys are getting ready because they might be the next guy in the game. Yeah. They've got to make themselves mentally ready.
Yeah.
Wow. So I teased the question, and it's not as great as I teased, I think.
But is it better than a cappella, Zach?
That wasn't a question, ass. So
this is the one I can't answer, right?
I think you can. I think it's just going to be an interesting way to get around it. So you've coached a lot of great players. We talked about Billy Miller. We talked about Pat Noonan. We talked about Matt McCune. We talked about Will Bruin. Mm-hmm. You've also coached some really good coaches like Pat and your son.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What means more to you, a successful coach that you've coached or a successful player that you've coached?
Or just any of the guys that are coaching now that you've touched?
Wow. Tough question.
See, I told you. That was right. That was a tough question.
Well done, Zach.
Thanks.
I've always wanted, no matter whether they were going to be the next Pat Noonan or the next Tony Vitello or just the next dad or businessman or friend, that's what I wanted them to be the best at. I wanted them to be the best dad in the world. I wanted them to be able to, when a guy got done playing soccer for me or a guy got done playing baseball, that when he had a son or a daughter, he was able to teach them, the major parts of the game, really, not so much minor parts, but be able to teach the game. To be a good person, to be a good citizen, to be a good friend. Those are the things that I was always looking for. And then the coaching thing, they probably took a lot of don'ts from me. Don't do this, and I better not catch myself doing this. I better not catch myself doing that. But I think it's an honor to have guys that came out of your program be in positions that those guys are in position.
Because let's talk about this for a second. And Jared, you've been teasing it, and I'm wearing my Tennessee stuff.
Well, I'm going to interject for a second.
Go for it.
Jared shot this over here. I'm going to play a quick clip. I
love this.
Play a quick clip, and I want to get everybody's feedback on this. We got a short 50-second highlight here. Let's take a look.
The Hall of Famer himself, Coach, congratulations on a huge win. I'm curious, what does this win mean to not only yourself, but your family and Tennessee faithful?
Well, remember the Field of Dreams?
Yes, sir.
And he says, is this heaven? And it's not Iowa. This is heaven, brother. This is heaven.
That it is.
Yep.
Was this the dream all along?
Sure.
Visualize it.
It has to be. It has to be the dream. I mean, every athlete, this is where you want to be at the end of the season. And only one team can be there. They're here.
I'm curious, you're a Hall of Famer. Did you know from an early age that your son would be this historic and legendary coach?
No.
Really?
No. It had to build.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I think in any situation, you got to be able to build.
Yes, sir.
He built.
For a little context for our listeners, that is just post game after, which we're going to get into, after his son Tony Vitello just led the Tennessee Vols to a national championship. Go from there, JB.
Well, there's confetti flying on all over the field in the video here. I just want to get your reaction when you hear yourself talk about what that means, and we all have kids. Right. And, it's the proverbial saying, you always want the best for yours. Right. Well, yours did the best. When you hear that, what's the first thing that comes to your head, to your heart? What's your memory of that moment?
Well, you're so proud that you can't talk. I couldn't talk immediately. As soon as the game ended, I couldn't talk. My 2 daughters were behind me. My grandson was next to me. And they just kept saying, there it is. What do you think? And I couldn't say anything. I was dumbfounded. And it just, and like I said, to this day, it hasn't sunk in. But it's mind-boggling. Wow. It is. It's just so terrific. It's an incredible experience. For all the years, my son and I sat and watched the College World Series. And now I'm walking onto the field after my son just won the College World Series.
Golly.
And more context is really important here, because as a former Vol, or Vol for life, as an alum, we had never won the College World Series. So not only did your son Tony win the College World Series, it was the first time ever for the University of Tennessee to do that. And you had Peyton Manning there. You had so many famous alum there to support the team, support your son. Cool. And he's become part of that pantheon. Pat Summitt, Phil, so many
great
amazing
Tennessee coaches.
Johnny Majors.
Yeah.
Your son is now up there with those guys. That's why I asked you, Greg, that question about coaching or playing. And I think you answered it perfectly, which is you were focused on getting those players to be good people.
Yeah.
And if they can do that, then they can do whatever they want. And I as a fan, as an alum, it was such an incredible experience. And to hear your post game, to see all those folks come out,
it was neat.
Awesome.
I gotta before, and you can remark to that. But if our listeners know and are familiar with the video, you had a little flow coming out of your hat, and I think
a rally haircut going.
I think the hair flow might be stronger than your boys. What do you think?
I had a couple of people ask about that. As a matter of fact, my son made a comment, and he was doing the Major League draft show.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how much hairspray he had to use because it was so hot on the stage. But no, I had gone through. First of all, I hate getting my hair cut. And I don't know why, but I just hate getting my hair cut. And, and so we were in Omaha for 11 days.
Yeah.
And the longer you're in Omaha, the better it is, believe me, because we've been in Omaha for very short times in previous years. And then just before that, we were at regionals and then super regionals and stuff like that, and it just kept going and going and going. And of course, my family members kept telling me, when are you going to get your hair cut? And I said, when it's over. It's kind of like the beard thing with hockey games.
Yeah.
So did you get a chance to meet any of the folks from like the Peyton Mannings or anybody like that?
My daughter and my wife were actually up there. She sat next to Rick Barnes and Peyton Manning most of the game, and Josh Heupel. These are just terrific individuals.
Rick Barnes is the Texas coach, right?
Yes, he was.
I'm just kidding. I'm giving Jack trouble.
Yeah.
Josh Heupel would jump across the table and
and then there's Morgan Wallen that was up there. Morgan's a terrific individual.
Wow.
Okay, as long as he can refrain from that
imbibing.
stuff. Yeah. But otherwise,
throwing metal.
he's
Being
done
caught
so
on ring
much for
cameras.
Knoxville. I mean, he's a Knoxville native, but he's done
he has.
so much for that. He's done so much for my son's program.
So let me ask you more of a zoom out kind of a question, because your relationship with all of these incredible situations from your own experiences as a high school coach, winning state championships, sending off 350 kids to college, and a good chunk of those high level players go pro. They play for the national team, and then you get to watch your pride and joy, your son, run the gamut, and win a College World Series. When you do get to just be a fan, how does it set in for you to be able to turn on the television and watch our U.S. national team, the ultimate pride, and there's a DeSmet Spartan? Or, what does that mean to you? And do you pinch yourself, or is it just part of the process?
Pinching's good. You just light up. You just glow inside.
Well, let me ask. I'm going to frame this a little bit differently. Then I want to stick to soccer just for a second. Mm-hmm. You go from baseball to Benedictine, and we've covered the path, and all of a sudden you're good at it. You're winning state titles in arguably the most competitive high school soccer environment in the nation. The first player that landed on the pro stage, or more importantly, maybe playing for the national team, because you followed them all. Once they put on the Stars and Stripes, who was it? Do you remember? And what did it mean to you?
Well, his name was Sam Bick.
Yep, we've had him.
Yep, he was here in that room right across the hall.
Yep.
What
a guy.
I coached Sam in football and in soccer, because that's at the time we were playing in the winter.
Right.
And Sam was a terrific football player also. But
he's a big dude. I mean,
big, strong guy.
Yeah, he's a big, strong guy.
As a matter of fact, I wish he wouldn't have moved. I think he lived right outside of Lexington.
Yep.
I understand his kids were really good. Same thing with Chris Klein. His kids were really good, and they all move away. Sam was a special athlete. But to see, it's just incredible. It really is. Like I said, you just glow inside. Yeah. You think, man, I was part of that.
Yeah, because when players go that path, indelibly, you are part of that chemistry.
The fabric.
Yeah.
100%.
So he's the first, but then they just start stacking up. Yeah.
It's
at what point was it like, where did you just become a fan?
Maroon gremlins.
As opposed to being a coach working on that process, did you ever just become a fan?
No. You watch a guy and you go, oh man, why didn't you turn? Hey, why didn't
that is so refreshing to hear you say that. I cannot tell you that.
Get up first in the area. Why are we taking first pitch fastballs right down the middle?
Tony, why'd you lose Game 2 in the College World Series?
Right, exactly.
Why did we make this go to Game 3?
But I tell you what, I've never gotten in his kitchen. I don't go in the dugout at all. Okay. Maybe the last out before they went to Omaha or something like that. But for the most part, I stay out of his kitchen. After some games, our eyes have met, and he'll just say, "Just don't go there." But it's for me, it was more difficult sitting in the stands watching than it is coach. I would rather be watching or playing than sitting in the stands.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I found it funny because I'm thinking contextually of you telling the story of that championship game. And, your family members, your wife, and everybody's sitting up and hanging out with the Saturday Night Live crew. And you're probably, that's not even crossing your mind.
No.
You're just sitting there weighing on every pitch, every swing.
Yeah, every pitch. And again, I guess that's the coaching thing. But I think, how many times have you heard a coach say, hey, man, at every minute of this game, every pitch of this game, the whole thing rides on just that single moment. When you're sitting in the stands, everything rides on that single moment.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? They had a kid thrown out at second base late in the game. Why are we stealing then? I don't understand that. We don't need that right there.
I'm assuming you didn't text your son.
No.
He's wearing an Apple Watch. He probably would have got it. Let me ask this. So we talked about special, and JB's question was awesome, and I loved your answer was so refreshing. That after the World Series win and being on the field and celebrating that and celebrating your son's direct success with the university, because of friends of my age group have told me, is that more special, or maybe those years? Because, Tony has some bits nationally and out in the media that if my dad sold insurance and spent as many hours selling insurance as he did coaching and taking care of those programs, we'd have an island somewhere and I wouldn't even be doing this. So those times
thanks, Dad.
in the middle school ages of Tony and high school ages, when you guys were working on that ball field, those batting cages, those infields, the amount of hours you put in together, was that more special to you, or was this championship more special?
Oh man, really tough. I think the hours I spent with him were probably, to me, more satisfying than that championship.
That's special.
And that was neat. But when we did that 100 ball ground ball thing, where I'd have to hit him 100 ground balls after practice, and at 60, if he missed it, we got to start again. And
You're like, just don't screw up. I'm hungry.
I'm cold. I want to go home. I've been here for like 13 hours, but
and you're eating ibuprofen by the pound.
Oh yeah,
like I got to get through this.
I know, man. Oh
no, it's funny because I watched all the videos, and that image of you kind of coming down the stairs, and the first time you guys connect as a father. Like I was envisioning, like you know how in the movies, whenever somebody's about to pass away, their life flashes in front of them. Mm-hmm. I was just imagining, like, as you're looking at him, you're probably envisioning him as a little guy in a high school kid. What was that moment in time? Do you even remember what was going through your head?
I don't. It was. We had trouble getting on the field, first of all.
Yeah.
Because they're just a little oversensitive there with everybody's doing their job.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just doing my job, sir.
Yeah.
And to get on the field, and then he's looking for us. And, we finally, our eyes meet, and there wasn't anything to say.
Yeah.
It was just hold each other. This is what it is.
So let me ask you this. You're a senior in high school in Chicago. You're on the docks, packing trucks.
Yeah.
Any clue that 18-year-old that you'd have not only the success that you had individually as a coach,
the Hall of Fame career,
multiple Hall of Fame inductions. Was there ever a glimmer of the future for you, or was it always just about
reacting
right now,
nose down,
and moving on?
Yeah,
it was pretty much right now. By the way, those Hall of Fame things with 750, I can get a latte with the Hall of Fame thing. Just tell them you're a Hall of Fame guy and you're 750. We'll give you a latte. No, it was. You don't even. It's somewhere else. It's in a different universe.
Yeah.
I'm loading trucks. That's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I couldn't even get to school because they said they didn't have anything for me. So I'm going to go to DePaul. I'm the only guy in my family. I mean, I had cousins that they really their goal in life was to get their name on their Sinclair gas station shirt. Yeah. That's where they were.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to go to college, I think. That was it.
And you also raised other kids other than Tony.
Yeah, I got 3 beautiful daughters.
Yes. And from my understanding, they're also doing fairly well.
Very well. So very well.
Take a second and praise them for a minute. I mean, no offense, Tony, but sit down. Let's hear about your older sisters.
Well, yeah, it's always about for them. It's always about the prince. Well, how come the prince got this, and how come the prince got that, and he was the first one to get a car, and he was the first one to get this, and he was the first one to get that. But all 3 of them went to Incarnate Word. They all went to Sacred Heart in Florissant. My wife and I were so lucky. Everybody goes through some trials and tribulations with their kids, and we did. But, it was part of the deal. That's what we signed up for. And if the good Lord didn't think we could handle it, then he wouldn't have given it to us. And we took care of it as best we could. And I am so proud of all of them. And to have them all together. Baseball has brought together our family.
Yeah.
And not everybody, is lucky as we are. They might have a family outing once a year or twice a year. We got everybody at every baseball game. I mean, it's terrific.
That's crazy.
I want to ask a question along those lines, and I'm going to go back to the 350 kids that you've sent away to college, because you were just sitting here talking about your kids and their path and all these things that they've achieved and accomplished, and the pride that you have, obviously, with these incredible experiences. But the one thing that I always think about, those 349 other kids, because one of them was your own son, right? You changed their lives in the same way, and I'm curious about, as a coach, when you were coaching, you had these players coming through. How much pride, how much fun did you have, not in the X's and O's, but in that
signing days,
in knowing that you're connecting these kids to a higher education and they get to continue to play the sport that they love? How important was that part of your coaching career?
I tell you, the first, when they first started doing these signing dates, I cried. And I usually don't cry, but I had some tears because I thought, wow, how neat is this?
Yeah.
I mean, these kids are sitting at this table and, they're making decisions really for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
And I was a very small part of that. I think sometimes coaches...
You're a bigger part than you're being humble.
They take a little bit too much credit sometimes.
Yeah, we see what you did there.
Yeah.
No, it's a big part.
And for me, and I know we're wrapping up, one of my last remarks is, and this is probably a really good, I'm hoping, compliment to you, is I'm fortunate enough to be friends with the guys that you coached, a lot of them, because every one of those guys, and we can list them, and we have listed some of them, they are excellent people first. And that's a big compliment to you, because every one of those guys, to a man, will credit you with a decent amount of their success on how you made them become men. And thank you, because they're some of my good friends, and they're great people, man.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
We've had some amazing coaches and players on this show, and we've been fortunate enough for them to hang out with our dipshit selves.
Dipshittery.
Or dipshittery.
Give yourselves more credit.
But there are a couple people that stand out to me, and you fall into this category, and Joe Clark comes to mind a lot. The way he handled himself at SLU, at WashU, and just the way he conducts himself and the people who talk about him. And then you got Terry Mickler, who you gave the highest praise to. We are good friends with Terry. We went to see him in the rehab facility. We're so excited to see him on the sidelines again in a couple weeks.
Yep.
So not a question, just praise again. Not for your coaching ability, but for your ability to lead people. Yeah. And the fact that you have done that with so many, and so many have been successful in different areas of life, whether it's a dad or coach or a player, and it's just a testament. So I thank you for spending time with us, and for all that you've done.
Yeah, well, I just quickly Googled that. On September 4th, looks like CBC will be playing DeSmet Jesuit.
Oh boy.
You should. Terry's back, right? He'll be on the sideline. You should walk down there and just stare at him.
I will.
Slap his book out of his hand.
Yeah, did you have notebooks too? Because he always had a little.
I know. Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's many times, we rode together almost daily to camps, and a good part of our conversation was him helping me. Hey, try this and try that, and how about this system, and how about moving this, and how about moving that. I mean, he was so good to me, and I just loved picking his brain, because I tell you what, there's a lot to pick there.
Oh, it's
lot. Really
tons. Yeah.
I tell you what, I have a parting comment as well, and it's really more of a thank you, kind of like a communal thank you from the show, because what we've figured out in doing this show is in talking to individuals like yourself and Joe Clark and Terry, et cetera, is that I think in terms of the new, crown jewel, City SC, and that stadium and the pro team and everything that's happening and kind of the acceleration of the quality of the game, the quality of the players, I find that there's foundations to all greatness. You are one of those individuals. You're part of the foundation, and all the work that you guys did from 68 through, and all the players, like, it's really just a thank you, because St. Louis soccer doesn't sit on top of the hill that it does if it wasn't for the Terry Micklers, the Coach Vitellos, etc. So it's just really a thank you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you. I'm humbled. Believe me, this is terrific.
Well, you are welcome back anytime.
Okay.
We'd love to do it. Maybe we get some of the OGs and put them all at a table and let them.
That'd be cool.
So I think that'd be fun. If you're willing, we'd love to have you back.
I'm willing anytime.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and we can't say it enough. Those of you that have listened, thank you for listening. Like, review, follow, share. Zach and J-Rod,
You're welcome.
you guys were a solid B pluses today. I like it, man. So,
Wow.
and of course, Mr. Patcher, thank you for opening the doors out here at Sock Park. Appreciate the hospitality. And we will catch everybody next time. Have a good evening, day, morning, whatever. Whenever you're listening to this, we're out of here. Be good.